Welcome to another episode of Gonagain. In this video, we start out in Taos, New Mexico, where we go to the original Kit Carson home there, where he and his wife lived for 25 years. We also go down to the Sante Fe National Forest and get a beautiful campsite and do some hiking and exploring. Hope you like it. Well, this desolate-looking place is actually public parking in Taos, New Mexico. And it is nice that they have these lots. There are several of these free parking areas because Taos is actually extremely commercial. It's become a real tourist town. So Taos is full of art galleries, chocolate shops, ice cream shops, all kinds of tourist attractions, things you can buy. But Taos is an old town, originally founded by the Spanish. In fact, when Kit Carson lived here, noisy. When Kit Carson lived here, it was still controlled by the Spanish. We're going to go to Kit Carson's original home here in Taos, and we want to take you with us to see that because we've been there before, and it's kind of interesting to see. This is the front of his home, much as you would have seen it back in the day when Kit Carson was living here. Of course, now it faces a very busy street. So this is the central courtyard. You actually see the original part of the house starts at that wall there and goes over to this section here and this section here. So that was like a living room, that was a bedroom, and that was Kit Carson's office down on this end here. I'm not sure when this section was built. It looks pretty old. But this section over here is the Romero house built in 1830, and this was Kit Carson's neighbor here. And one reason it's not better kept here and better kept up is there is no federal funding for this museum. It's all done by just entry fees. It's a non-profit organization that's been running it since the 1950s.
Is that what you would? I got it.
So Kit Carson's home has now become a museum. Linda and I came here years ago. There is no way I can tell you all the things that Kit Carson is known for and that he's famous for. He did so much.
Look at this silk dress, it's so tiny. This was the silk dress worn by Josefita Carson, the youngest daughter of Kit and Josefa. She died in Las Vegas, New Mexico at the age of 24. But look at how tiny it is. It's beautiful.
Of course, the home here is adobe. It was restored in the 1950s. I guess it was pretty fallen down at that time. Every room, of course, has a fireplace. But Carson and his Spanish wife lived here for 25 years. That's his wife there and child. It's hard to know where to start with Kit Carson because he was a man of many talents and he did many, many things. From being a fur trapper, and he also scouted for John C. Fremont. But basically, he started out as learning the saddle maker's trade in Franklin, Missouri, but as a young man, a young teenager. But he knew that being a saddle maker and a shopkeeper wasn't for him. And
so he ran away.
he became a very successful trapper. And at one rendezvous, I think it was the 1835 rendezvous. He was born in 1809, by the way. But he came across a very mean trapper that had taken this young Indian girl and was going to, and dared anybody to take her from him. And Kit Carson knew that she was in trouble, and he challenged that man and he killed him. And basically won his bride.
She was a beautiful Arapaho young lady.
And was very thankful that he rescued her. Right. Kit Carson had to go through the marriage ceremony where he traded, it was a very stiff price for this young lady. He traded a trade rifle, 3 mules, 15 Hudson Bay blankets, and some other things. I didn't pay anything like that for Linda here, but I got a good deal.
Hey.
Anyways,
remember, I can throw a tomahawk.
Amongst the best of them.
Good.
That's true. But anyways.
They had 2 children that, I think 2 children.
2 girls, I'm
2
pretty
girls. Sure. And then he later took them back to Missouri.
So they could get a Catholic education. But after he made sure they were settled and taken care of, he got on a steamboat heading back up the Missouri River to resume his trapping and hunting career when he met John C. Fremont. John C. Fremont had been hired by the U.S. government to come out and map this whole area, the whole western part of the United States. And he and Kit Carson became very good friends and very good business partners, and they worked out very well together. But Kit Carson had gotten to know many of the different Indian bands out here and got along with most of them, although some of them were bent on doing them, the Carson and Fremont, harm. And it was during that time that Kit Carson became known as an Indian fighter, but it was out of necessity, out of self-protection. Now, here's the thing. Lately, people have come to judge Kit Carson and his career and his life from 2020 hindsight, but that's totally wrong. You had to have been in his shoes and gone through what he was going through as the times dictated, and so you got to be careful with that. He eventually went to work for the military, and he was in charge of the Long Walk, and it was where they were relocating the Navajo. And Kit Carson originally turned down that job because he was getting pretty old and he was also getting very sick, and he turned it down and didn't want to do it until he heard who the man was who was going to take his place. And the man was a known bloodthirsty Indian killer, this particular soldier, or Chivington was his name. And when Kit Carson found out that he was the one that was going to lead the Long Walk, Kit Carson knew that none of those Indians would arrive alive.
He had to. Once he knew Chivington was going to be in charge of the Long Walk, he knew he had to be there to protect the Navajo from Chivington. And
he did. He did. One thing that he did do was, sometime after that, Carson and his party got attacked by a band of Indians, and they stole all their horses. Well, they tracked down this band, and when they caught up with them, there was a fight, and they got their horses back, but there was some Indians killed. And it turned out that the Indians that had the horses had traded the band that actually stole the horses. Had traded no near, and they had traded these horses off, and that was something that Kit Carson had to live with for the rest of his life.
Yeah. That happened.
And he did have remorse for doing that.
That happened a lot in Western history.
There was a lot of horse stealing back then.
Yeah.
It's just that in the museum, I heard a man comment about what a killer Kit Carson was, and he was very uneducated, ignorant, and didn't. But I noticed that that man did spend a lot of time reading everything in the museum. So hopefully he's educated now. But it's very unfair to judge our past by today's standards.
Especially if you just heard what you know about Kit Carson from a third person hearsay, where you haven't read about him from both sides. And it's really bad to walk into a museum or his house and say what a bad man he was.
Without knowing,
Right.
yeah, because the man was wrong. But anyhow, Kit Carson, in his later years, what's the proper word? He fought very hard
He
for the
advocated for the Native Americans.
He spent the rest of his life doing that and making sure that they were...
Making sure that treaties, he tried his best to make sure that whatever treaties they had was adhered to
and enforced
on the government side.
He did that. So one thing we forgot was that he had married a Spanish lady by the name of Josefina, and they had 9 children. They lived in this house for 25 years. They had 9 children, and they're buried both of them are buried just a few blocks from here. Anyways, you guys, I hope we didn't bore you with that. It's fascinating history, and Linda and I had been here years ago, and we wanted to show it to you. So, hope you like this part. This is why it's difficult to describe his life, because right here it says he was a frontiersman, trapper, scout, guide, transcontinental courier, U.S. Brigadier General, Indian agent, husband and father. Pretty full life. That was why it was hard to tell you about his life, is because he did so many things. There are books and more books written on Kit Carson and his life. So it's pretty interesting history, and the books are fascinating. In case you're looking for some good reading, pick up any book on Kit Carson. We've got a lot of windy road here to go up.
Gosh, oh, my ears are like popping like crazy. Well, we were camped at about 8,000 something elevation, right? And now we're going up. What is that about?
It's super windy road. Oh, and there are little landslides too. Great.
I did mention landslides in the...
Did you mention the high winds that threatened to tip the trailer over?
No.
We had to slow way down down to about 35, 40 miles an hour, because it was blowing 40 to 50 miles an hour right on the side too. So just from one thing, it's just all exciting, that's all.
Yeah. It's all part of what we do.
We still got a ways to go on this.
I thought we were at the top. No?
But to give you a hint, the speed limit here is 25 because it's so windy.
At least the road widened out a little bit here.
Yeah, that helps. Especially if you're driving an 18-wheeler down this or up this. Ooh, well, the car is dirty. We were camped in that Cimarron State Park, which was extremely windy and dusty, and then we got a little rain, and what a mess. Anyways, we left there this morning. We traveled through Taos, where we stopped at Kit Carson's old home there, and now we're camped between Taos and Cuba, New Mexico, off of Highway 96 in the Sante Fe National Forest. We're glad to be here, and the reason is because it's still really windy, and it will be tomorrow too. But down here we're below the wind that's going over through the top of the trees, and they're really bending and doing everything, but not bad where we're at. We're kind of sheltered here, so we feel kind of lucky to be in this spot. Out in front of us here, a couple hundred feet, is a narrow paved county road, and it's pretty quiet. There's not much traffic on it, occasional car. And we're kind of tucked back in where we got a little privacy back in here. Now the first thing I always have to do is get out my compass and determine where true north is, so I know where to point the Starlink, and hope I have some coverage that way. And there's a lot of trees in the way here, but I think I'll have just enough. I don't have much that I need to do online this evening or tomorrow, so it should be okay. I saw an interesting looking area up in the rocks here. I thought we'd go check that out real quick. It may be nothing. There are Pueblo ruins nearby, so I'll be keeping my eye out for pictoglyphs and petroglyphs and shelter areas, as Linda and I are planning on doing a hike out of here tomorrow and heading up this narrow valley that we're in. Sometimes going up is the easy part. It's going down where your feet tend to slip out from under you and all the pine needles and everything. Oh yeah, nothing up here. I see what looks like red ochre all around here, but I don't know. And there's some marks on the rock there, but I can't tell if they're anything or not. I don't know. I don't think so. Under here, though, is the kind of place where someone who was traveling could take shelter, because this is protected from the prevailing wind, and also, of course, provides some shelter from rain. This is the kind of thing I look for. So that red ochre right there might mean something, like, hey, shelter here. Don't know. It kind of looks like pottery. If it is, it's really old. Or it could just be a piece of this sandstone here. What do you think? Leave a comment below. But this is another sheltered spot here. Looking out across from this sheltered site, there's an alcove right up in here. Some kind of dark area, but I don't think it's anything. It's kind of facing the wrong direction. But I'm going to go look. Now, I've said this in earlier videos, but it's worth repeating. One thing is that they were human beings just like us, and they like to camp in beautiful places, just like we would. So if you see a place that has beautiful scenery or something like that, they appreciated that too. If there's a rock along the trail that's comfortable for sitting down on, you can bet they sat on it too. Took in the spectacular vista below them or whatever. They didn't camp where we camp. We would choose to camp next to a stream or something where we could fish and get water easily. That's because we have a thing called DEET or picaridin, or, insect repellent, and they didn't have that. So they camped away from water, and they didn't camp in places that had no breeze whatsoever. They preferred a breeze to be coming through, because that would keep the mosquitoes down too. So it was a little different. And when you look at places where you're looking for shelter sites, you got to kind of keep those things in mind. Just moving up on this area here. Well, it was doubtful, but this end down here protects you from the prevailing wind, and there is a spot back in there. Of course, this would have been a lot lower at the time if they did decide to use this as a shelter of any sort, but that's a maybe. This is pretty good shelter back in here. Another indication is, look at the color of the soil down here. It's light tan, and look at the color right up above it. It's like it's mixed with ash from, campfires thousands of years ago. So that's a possibility that they use this spot. And the blackening on the rocks that you see, well, that's indicative of campfires up here, but these rocks in this area tend to have a lot of black on them, so I wouldn't say for sure. If you're wondering where Linda's at, she told me to get lost so she could take a nap. I think I'll go back and make some coffee and wake her up. Some old lumber. It's pretty old. It's 2x8s and 1x. But I didn't think too much of it until I saw what's over here in the trees, next to the beer bottles and stuff. There's the remains of an old wood-burning stove laying in here. Well, we got out this morning for a hike. But when we woke up, it was 33 degrees outside. Nice now, though. Feels great. I don't see a trail up there. I'm going to wait until we get past these rocks ahead of us. Oh, I see the embankment's hurting your foot. After you.
Give it a shot.
Don't fall down. Looks
I won't
steep.
fall down, I'll slide down.
If you live, I'll follow you. Oh yeah, be careful.
Piece of cake. Watch out for cactus too.
Over this way, Linda.
What?
Over this way. Well, there's absolutely no trail through here, but we're just picking our way through the rocks. It's fun anyway, and it's good exercise. Just came across this old fence. I just found a perfectly good gas can laying in the woods. Must have fallen off somebody's ATV or something. It's empty. If I smelled it, it's gas. Or it was gas.
I found a cool place to hang out. I don't know if people did or not, but I would have.
Are we going to hang out there now?
Yeah, maybe.
Let's go look at it.
Drink some water.
Okay. You're not going to get me lost now, are you?
Nope. I know exactly where I'm at. I'm right here. There, look at this cool, huge boulder. But you go around and come see. Okay, come around.
Oh, yeah.
And watch out for that cactus right there. But look at that. Some of it is pack rat, but some of it is not.
Yeah, it's quite the overhang.
And you have shelves to put your stuff away. And if you go around on the other side, there's a nice sunbathing area. You can see the whole valley.
Neat place in the woods.
Yeah, see, another place to hang out.
Hey, bingo. We've been looking for some sign. Don't really see any definite habitation sites, but there's a flake, it's an obsidian flake.
Yeah, it's obsidian. Nice.
Yeah.
It's a lot nicer than this rock that said, "Hey, Linda, pick me up. I'm a nothing."
Yep, that's a piece of quartz.
Yep. It's worn
Yeah.
smooth.
Just a flake left over from tool making. That's what that is. Cool. Yeah, if a man was here making a tool, that means he was hanging out in this area. Doesn't mean that there's a shelter here, but you know. But he was hanging out here. Or he could have been just traveling along and making a preform or something as he was moving.
Oh,
What do you see up there?
I see flat areas. Boy, they must get some wind though. There's trees broken off midway up. There's a nice spot here, or a fire. So look at this.
You found something else. Yeah. Well, that was being worked. And you can't see, but if I wash this off, you can see it's clear agate on the inside, so it'd make a good tool.
Yeah. And this is sharp.
Right. Well, this is probably knocked off a bigger piece when they were making something.
Yep.
It's good to see these things up here, you know, because we've been looking, and this is the first time we've gotten far enough south to be able to find stuff. We're still here in north central New Mexico.
And this is sitting so the white stood out.
Yeah.
I thought it was a piece of ceramic.
What that is calcification on the
Yep.
outside from just being many, many years old. All right.
I gotta find a way down. Deer scat. Nope. This way.